So I am challenging myself to read my 3 oldest arcs. I'm gonna make this a 24-hour reading vlog, but potentially it will go a little bit longer. The challenge here is I have just been awake for like 13 hours. I had planned to do this today, but I completely forgot about it because it's the 2nd of January, and so in the excitement of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, I just completely forgot about this project until like 2 hours ago. And of course, in those 2 hours, while I did spend the entire time with my eyes closed, trying to fall asleep, it did not happen, I think. So we are going into this having been awake for 13 hours and now going to try and stay awake for 24 more, potentially more. Now, I'm not gonna automatically say like I cannot sleep, but one of the first sort of like challenges for myself now is that I will be reading a book called The 24-Hour Cafe by Libby Page, and this one takes place over a period of 24 hours, with each chapter being corresponding to one of the 24 hours, meaning every hour of the day I'm going to be reading a chapter in that book. Now, I'm gonna be reading other stuff as well throughout the day. I have 2 other books that I want to get through, but I'll talk about those later. Not that I really can say much about this one to begin with. All I really expect of it is to be like a wholesome, cozy, light, probably romance type of read. But in terms of like the actual plot, I've forgotten all of this. Now, when it comes to arcs, I am really, really bad at keeping up with them. So these are super old, guys. Like they came out in like 2020 or 2021, I think. So I'm really behind on them. I want to get through that backlog in 2024. And while I originally had like another book scheduled as sort of like my first read for 2024, I kind of feel like it would be a great start of my year to be able to like cross 3 of these remaining arcs off of my list like immediately. So, wish me luck. Here we go. I will be reading a chapter of this every hour for this full 24 hours and probably alternating the 2 other ones in between. I don't know how long chapters are, how long it will take me, for example. But yeah, now I'm just gonna get my reading pillow and install myself here in the bedroom, which is a dangerous move because it's like it invites me to sleep, I guess, but I just don't want to sit upright at the moment in the sofa. That's like too much of a dedication, I guess, to this vlog. So let's start off easy. Let's start off with just like the reading pillow in bed, and let's take it from there. 2 o'clock. I'm seriously flagging. I think for now, I'm gonna read just my chapter in the 24-hour cafe and then take another break until 3 o'clock, sleeping break. Yes, that sounds so amazing right now. Alright, it is 9 o'clock in the morning. I have definitely been sleeping. And also more than I anticipated because somehow I lost an hour somewhere. But so, yeah, I am now 7 chapters into, like, I finished the first 7 chapters of the 24-hour cafe. As it is coming on 9 o'clock, that means I'm 1 chapter behind because I should have also read the 8th chapter. But as I indicated, I lost an hour somewhere. So at 8:36, I was like, wait, why am I starting chapter 7? I should be starting chapter 8, right? So it means that somewhere at 7, I apparently didn't realize that I wasn't awake. So I have only been reading that mainly. I've read like the introduction of one book and then the first chapter of another. So, but I think now I've had enough sleep to just like get out of this bed, get some coffee into me, and make a serious headway in all of these books from now on. But yeah, I'll start this first hour by catching up to the 24-hour cafe. So I am a third of the way into the book at this point in time. Not entirely sure yet that I'm really enjoying it. Like it's like I'm liking it, but most of the action at the moment is kind of just like told through memories. There's not a lot of active things happening, but of course we're also just like we're following this woman as she is on her shift. So she is working at this cafe, and so it's not like she can really like go places, for example, and do stuff. So it kind of makes sense, but I am definitely hoping that the second half of this 24-hour time period when she will be off shift will have a little bit more action in the now, because this just makes the story kind of feel very passive because not much is happening in the present day. It's all happening in the past, and she's just like looking back at one particular scene every single chapter. So we're looking at her perspective, but we're also looking at the perspective of this boy who is sitting in the cafe. He has just left the cafe, so I'm curious to see whether we will still be following his perspective as he goes about his day as well, or whether he will just be popping into the cafe later again today and we'll meet up again with him at that point in time. But so yeah, we're looking at this girl called Hannah who is living together with a friend called Mona. Both of them work at this 24-hour cafe. Both of them have come to London to kind of make it in entertainment. Mona is a dancer, Hannah is a singer, but both of them have now been here for years. And while this combination of working at the cafe and pursuing their dreams was supposed to be a temporary situation until they actually managed to pursue their dreams, it's been 5 years and they're still in this kind of situation. And so Hannah at this point in time is actually coming to um, feel like she's kind of done with all of this. She's kind of starting to feel like giving up on this dream, like it's not about to happen, and starting to feel like she's not good enough for it. That's she doesn't have what it takes to make it. Whereas Mona has just received a call back at the beginning of the day, and so hopefully we'll get at least some sort of a break for a little while. And Hannah at the same time is also dealing with feelings of this sort of feeling that Hannah has of not being able to make it is kind of exacerbated by the fact that she's in this stage in life where a lot of the people around her are settling down, are having stable situations in life, earning a lot more money because of changing career paths, and going for the steady stable jobs rather than the pursuit of their dreams, and settling down with families and kids. And so she's getting to this point where she's just lost her previous boyfriend, and so she's kind of starting to wonder, is this never going to be for me? And then the boy that we're following is a boy that comes in who has recently lost his mother, and so in his story, a lot of it is going to be about grief and about, seeing his mother in the people around him. But he's also very much struggling financially, and he doesn't really have a place to stay, for example. So he's staying in this cafe basically as a way to get through the night and have a roof over his head, rather than having to spend it out in the streets, for example. So interested to see where his story is going to go and how they're gonna, keep on connecting, considering he now left the cafe. But I'm gonna get up, get some coffee so that I can go through further hours of reading. Zombie Cleo here. You can see by my eyes that I am not doing great in terms of staying awake. I did just take a shower in the hopes that that will kind of make it more easy to stay awake, I guess. But so yeah, I am over halfway through the 24-hour cafe, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. Like, definitely at this point in time, we can say that we are following just like the people who are currently in the cafe. So the shift has just changed, and so Hannah is no longer one who is in the cafe working. It's now Mora who is in the cafe, and so now we're following the story from her perspective. And so we haven't gone back to the perspective of that boy that we were following in the beginning, because after he left the cafe, we kind of lost track of him. I'm still interested to see whether we will revisit him afterwards or not, but so occasionally we just like shift to other perspectives of people who are visiting the cafe. I like how this book, as I indicated, is kind of like about pursuing your dreams and the difficulty of, sticking to that dream when things are rough and, you've been going at it for such a long time. It seems like nothing seems to be changing. It is also about friendship and the way that friendship dynamics evolve across time, and we're currently at a point in time in which the friendship dynamics between these two friends is kind of difficult because of things that happened between Hannah and her boyfriend in the past, where Maura felt left out, for example, but also due to changes in their circumstances when it comes to pursuing their dreams. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. I will now finally talk about one of the other books that I'm currently reading. So first one I'll talk about is the Apocalypse 7 by Jean Doucette, I believe. So I've read 2 chapters in that so far, and I will be in the next time slot trying to fit in a third chapter in that. I am about like 10% into that at this point in time, I think. So not that far in yet. But so basically we follow, like we start off basically with one character, Robbie, who is going to Harvard University. He went to a party and the next morning he wakes up, no memory of how he basically got back into bed and how he got dressed. But it turns out that he's alone in his room, alone on his hall, and things get stranger and stranger. He does run into somebody early on, but then when they finally like step outside to kind of figure out what's going on, it seems like the world has been completely abandoned. Nature has been able to retrieve some of its domain, whereas according to them, only like a night has passed, but it seems like the world has evolved and reclaimed itself a lot more than what would be warranted by a single night's time lapse. So yeah, I'm reading that one at the moment. I'll talk about the third one a little bit later. As I'm only 10% into the Apocalypse 7, I really cannot say too much about it yet, because each chapter so far, or like I calling them chapters, they're not actually called chapters, but I basically stopped when we changed perspectives, and so we've had 2 perspectives now, and so interested to read about the third one now. All right, it's 9 o'clock at night. I just got the news that the insurance company will not be covering the cost of my bicycle being stolen, which means that I've lost like all focusing power for tonight. So I am probably gonna call it a night and just like spend the rest of the evening watching BookTube or Friends or something like that, and then like take an early night and then continue a little bit for tomorrow. I have read a total of 9 hours across this time now, so it's 7:30, and so read a total of 9 hours across these 19 hours and 26 minutes that I've been awake so far. So I was just catching up to like the um, having spent half of my day reading mark. And so my goal had kind of been to try and read 12 hours today, so that then tomorrow I could read another 12 hours to make this a real sort of like 24-hour challenge. But you know what? I've already read over 400 pages today. So that's definitely more than a win, definitely way more pages than I ever read. So, and since I'm really exhausted and now also emotionally not that great, we're gonna call it a night, and we'll pick this back up tomorrow. We are back amongst the semi-living, I guess, because it is 8:30 the next day. I kind of lied to you guys last update. I mean, I didn't lie at that point in time. I was just really having problems focusing, but after just like calming down a little bit, I got back to reading eventually, because, like, and there was nothing really I can do about it at that point in time. So just had to calm my mind a little bit, and then I was able to get back to reading for the rest of the evening. So I did until like maybe 12:30 or something like that read yesterday evening, and so I did finish the 24-Hour Cafe by Libby Page. I really enjoyed this one. Like, I was even debating giving it like 5 stars. In the end, I think I'm going to settle for like 4.5, just because there's something like, there's a personal gripe that I didn't mind in this one. I don't think it's done like in the way that I really dislike it, but I would have personally preferred for the book to cut off just a little bit earlier. But so I think this one was really, really nice. It was very wholesome. I really loved the interspersing of the main story of these two friends with these stories of people who are visiting the cafe. As well, what I really liked about the way that this is formatted is that because of us centering around the 24-Hour Cafe and having each chapter taking place across 1 hour in that cafe, it meant that our perspectives of our two protagonists aren't alternated the way that you typically would see in a mostly dual perspective book, but we get all of the chapters from Hannah's perspective at the beginning of the book, and then we switch to Mona's perspective for the second half of the book. And so it kind of reminds me of the movie The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby. You also have two versions of that movie. You have the him and the her version, and I find it's interesting to kind of see like how you have the story framed in one way, and then you revisit certain parts of that story from a different perspective, which kind of changes your view on it a little bit as you get to that second perspective then. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the story of friendship and of like the difficulties of maintaining friendship, but also sort of like the reflections that sometimes need to be made about whether a friendship is still serving you or not. And then also the smaller perspectives that we had from like people visiting the cafe were also really lovely, sad a lot of times as well, but always had this sort of like hopeful edge towards the end of those chapters. And then sort of kind of like my gripe, let's say, with it is that I really enjoyed like the fact that we were following these perspectives as they were going into the cafe and out. And while originally I was like, oh, I want to see where this story is going with these particular perspectives. As we were going further into the book, I was kind of feeling like, no, it's actually more perfect for us to like not revisit these perspectives, because, you know, this is what happens throughout life. There are people whose paths we've crossed, whose stories we never really know, and so it kind of emphasizes that transient nature, to just have us as readers see part of their story and never learn more about it. But we do get that within the book, so we do revisit these perspectives at the end. And I do definitely see the merit in that. I understand why this is done. I understand that most people would be super annoyed if like we would leave some of these perspectives off at the point in which we last see them throughout that day. But so we do have a time jump at the end and revisit the cafe 1 year later. And I definitely think that in terms of sort of like the symmetry of the perspectives of Hannah and Mona, that is a benefit to have done it like that, because otherwise we would have not revisited Hannah's perspective anymore. And there is, of course, a nice little split between two if we would have just gone with Hannah and Mona for the second half. But I guess it just is a better way of finishing off the story if we then revisit both of these perspectives in the final chapter of the book. But so, yeah, really enjoyed this one a whole lot. Yesterday, I, as a consequence, got quite some reading done. I ended up the day at 580 pages for one single day. Today is not going to be the same. It is almost 9 o'clock. I had set my alarm for 6 o'clock, but when the alarm went off, I was definitely kind of like, what? I'm not like, I think the first time it went off, I was like, oh no, what now already? I snoozed, and then until like 7:30 or something like that, the alarm was going off regularly, but I just lost all concept of what an alarm clock is. To then at 7:30 be like, oh wait, what? This is the alarm that I was snoozing. Yeah, I'm supposed to get up. And so for the past hour or so, I've just been like writing my review for the 24-hour cafe and you just like sitting, being on Instagram and stuff like that. So I am now ready to start my day again. It's definitely not going to be as productive as yesterday in terms of reading, I think, because I am starting to feel the drain a little bit. You know, reading 580 pages in one day, it's a lot of reading. So I'm guessing I'll probably take it a little bit more easy today. And so we'll see where we land. We'll see whether tomorrow I continue this vlog or not, or whether I'll just like, yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, so I basically ignored you guys, I think, for the most of the day, but yeah, I also started my day like only halfway through it. And I did go to the cinema as well today, so today definitely wasn't as intense of a reading day as yesterday. So basically, in comparison, like yesterday, I read more or less 12 hours, and today I am like closing in on the 19, I guess, so like 7 cumulative hours that I read today. So definitely a whole lot less, but that's fine. I am a bit like worried about tomorrow when I will be trying to finish my third book, because today I basically listened most of it on audio, but I don't have the audio for the third one. So I have finished the Apocalypse 7 now, and I gotta say that part of the reason why I needed that audio is because it was just so. I would probably have DNF'd if it wasn't an arc, but I do want to, in case of arcs, especially when I'm so behind on the deadline for them, definitely want to give them the benefit of the doubt and go all the way through with them. In this case, I would say I could definitely still recommend it, but I would recommend it to people who are just like looking for a fun, light little sci-fi post-apocalyptic adventure. It does have a pretty fun spin, I guess, at the end, but in terms of like its proceedings, its themes, it's like the conversations going on or something like that. There's nothing really like deep or exceptional about it. I think it's just like it just stays pretty surface level, and I feel like I, as a reader, for example, I do like a post-apocalyptic story, for example, but I would like for a post-apocalyptic story to then also dive into sort of like reflections on the way that, you know, we may have gotten our priorities wrong in life prior to the apocalypse. You know, I want to have this event trigger some sort of a character growth or a reflection, a thematical discussion of something about our present day society. And that hasn't really been happening in this one, or not to a huge extent. As indicated, there is some sort of a spin towards the end of the novel, which I did appreciate, though I also feel like in that sort of like last third or so of the novel, there's a lot of exposition happening, which also makes it like more difficult to go through, because there's just so much being explained at that point in time, that, you know, considering I was already kind of like mentally checking out to some extent, that made it like really difficult to keep on paying attention to it. So not really a success for me. I'm gonna give it like 2.5 star rating. It gets that 0.5 at the end because of that spin. Otherwise it would have just been a 2. Like, it's an okay read. I had an okay time with it, but it's like nothing exceptional. So yeah, moving on to the third book. I am going to go to bed now. It's like 11:30, I think. So I'm gonna go to bed now, and then tomorrow I'm gonna try and finish out Synopticon, which I think I have like 6 hours or so left in it at my current reading pace. And I think that reading pace also kind of differs based on the short story that I'm reading, as this is a short story collection. I don't think I've actually talked about this book, so let me do that right now. So Synopticon is a short story anthology featuring Chinese translated sci-fi literature that came out in 2021. Yes, that's how long this one has been on there, but the 2 previous ones that I finished during this vlog have actually come out earlier than that even. But so and so it is featuring, as I indicated, Chinese translated sci-fi short stories. A lot of these are by authors who, at that point in time at least, had not been translated into English. Some of these names I am recognizing, so at least some of the ones that I've already stumbled across in like the first, I think I've read the first 4 now or so. And so some of these I have already recognized, so they are definitely translated in the meantime, or they just are exceptionally one of the few ones that were already translated at that point in time. And so far it's just a mixed bag. Like I think I've enjoy two. I've been more struggling with two others, but the one that I definitely enjoyed a lot is the first one. The first one is so far my favorite one, and that is basically one that looks at the possibility of not really, the possibility of basically saving your, how am I going to explain this? Consider your entire life as a sort of like game, and then at different points in your life, you could basically hit the save button, and then all progress that you've made in your life up until that point is saved. And so if you get to a later point in life and you feel like, no, this is not where I want to be, I want to go back to that previous point in time and resume my life from there and go in a different direction, then that is a possibility now. So whenever you are stuck with a difficult choice, you can now decide to save your life in that point in time so that you can go back to that point in time later on if things don't really work out. And so we meet up with this guy who basically has returned to a past version of himself because he wants to avoid a confrontation with his wife because she was really unhappy because he came home with the wrong washing liquid. And that already indicates like how far some of these implications are, because of course you're thinking about the big life changes, like if you're deciding on whether you are going to pursue this career or whether you're going to stick to the career that you currently have. That's a big decision that would maybe warrant a save. But if this technology is available to you, then then it can also spiral to you using it for like super small decisions as well. But what we're seeing here as well is that there is some danger as well, because he, for example, has used this software a few times in the past to kind of change his life because he was no longer happy in the relationship that he was in. And as we find out throughout the short story, when this happened, when your partner decides to leave your version of the save game, then they just disappear. So they go back to a previous point in their life to have another go at it. But for the version of but for the partner who has not stepped out of this save game, they are just left living the rest of this life with their partner having disappeared, knowing that their partner has most likely gone back in time to a different version of themselves to try and change their path in life because they were no longer happy. So I really enjoyed that one. I thought it had a really interesting concept. You know that feeling of like setting yourself a 2-day challenge and starting day 5 of the challenge? So yesterday did not go as planned, so I barely did any reading yesterday. I think I did like 40 pages of reading or something. Maybe not even an hour of actual reading time. Just like wasn't happening. And then in the evening I was like trying to catch up, but I was just so damn tired. I was just falling asleep, which was nice because I have been struggling with falling asleep all the entire holiday long, the entire vacation long. So um, I guess I am tired from that, but I am now hopefully on what is the last day of this challenge, because it was supposed to be just like 2 days in which I was gonna like step away from the TBR that I'd set myself to do this challenge, and now this is 5 days out of my month. So now my incredibly overambitious TBR is definitely starting to be overambitious. So I will see what happens with my TBR for the rest of the month. But let's go back into this book. So yeah, I have not had great success, I think, with the short stories that I've had in the meantime. I did quite enjoy the previous short story that I read, which was kind of like about like um commuting from Mars back to Earth, basically like a lot of humans having gotten jobs on Mars right now, and then when they have to like when the distance between Mars and Earth is at its like shortest, that's when like the great migration happens, and then they all have to kind of like flood towards the stations to try and get a transport back home. And it's like talking about the chaos of that entire experience. And what I do also really appreciate about this short story collection is that we have a note section at the end of each short story in which the editor goes over the so a little bit of the background of the author, of the short story, but also kind of discussing the short story a little bit. And so in that one, it was kind of talking about how this concept was thought of when the author had to migrate back to their hometown for Lunar New Year, which sees a very, very big migration every single year and is referred to as the Great Migration. So I do enjoy that sort of backstory that you get after each short story that kind of reflects a little bit on what you've just read. And so, yeah, I am a little bit over midway through. I'm 56% in. According to the ebook, have like 4 hours or so left, and in my challenge I have a little over 2 hours left, so I won't be able to fit the entire page count into this challenge, but I will still include my end thoughts on the collection in here as well. All right, it is close to 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 6th of January, and I am like 2 minutes out from the 24-hour mark in terms of how much reading I've done since the 2nd of January, basically. So basically that was the original purpose of this challenge, though I was going to try and do it in 48 hours to do a 24 in 48, which absolutely failed. I am now 81% into Synopticon. I just finished the short story, so that's why I also was like, let's just round it off here. Like, not round it off, I'll still give you my final thoughts, but let's like consider it 24 hours. I don't need to read like the first 2 minutes of the next story just to be able to officially say, hey, we've done 24 hours. I will have it on the screen how much reading I did during those 24 hours, because that is the official statistics, of course. So I did read the entirety of the 24-Hour Cafe, the entirety of The Apocalypse 7 by Jean Doucette, and then I read a 81% in Synopticon. And yeah, I just read a short story, which I gotta say is like really a cruel short story, basically. But I like that. I like that a lot. From the moment in which I realized like what the twist was gonna be, I was like, ooh, that's like, I like that. I like when you take a twist that kind of punishes the person. So you're punishing the person we're following, whereas a person thinks that they are like getting a good deal out of something. They're actually being punished way more than they originally thought. So yeah, I'm enjoying the last two ones that I've been reading. I really enjoyed those. So then it's kind of flew by. I feel like around the middle section, I was hitting a few more stories that just didn't really work for me. And so I was like struggling a little bit more getting through those. But the last two ones have been really good, which is a great thing because especially like this, not the one that I just read, but the one before that was like almost 20%, I think, of the page count of the entire book. So that was one that I got through quickly and without really struggling to, continue. So that, of course, definitely helped, because if that would have been one that I would struggle with, and it's like 20% of the entire page count, then that would have been not so great, I guess. But so I have about an hour and 45 minutes left in Synopticon, according to the estimate on the Kindle. And so, yeah, I will still try to do that today. I have two short stories, I think, left within those 20%. So I think I'm just going to take a short break right now, then read the next short story, take another break, and then read the final one. And then that'll be it for my reading for today. Hello, it's Sunday the 7th. I finished Synopticon yesterday, so I need about an hour and a half extra compared to the 24-hour time period I'd given myself to finish it. But so that's still relatively well calculated how much I could get into those 24 hours. Especially since I didn't really do any calculations. I just kind of, though I did some calculations, I kind of looked at the amount of chapters, but that doesn't really tell you anything. If I would have really looked at the page count, I would have been like, no, wait. But so this is the total amount of pages that I read in this entire experiment, compared to the ones that I had previously read within the 24 hours. It's not going to be a huge difference, of course. When it comes to Synopticon, I gave that one like 3 stars. As with many anthologies, it is kind of a mixed bag. There are certain stories that just don't really work for me, and then there are stories that I really liked. My favorite stories were The Last Save, which is that first one that I already talked about here. The Absolution Experiment, which is what the sort of like what I mentioned previously, which is kind of like a story with a a cruel twist basically to it. So it's basically a story of this guy who is a real bad human being. He has committed some sort of crime that resulted in over 100 people passing away. He apparently has a very racist view and stuff like that. He's kind of rotting away in prison and wants to change his life sentence to a death penalty. However, the death penalty is no longer being used, so it's no longer being exercised, and so they offer him a different way. Instead, they offer him a option to actually get free by taking part in a medical experiment, and if when the experiment concludes, he will be set free. There is, of course, the risk of him passing away because of this medical experiment, but because he wanted a death sentence in any case, then he would be getting what he wants in either case. And so there is a spin to this story, and it's a story that is meant to kind of trigger thoughts about, not necessarily prison sentences, but the way we sentence people, the punishments and which punishments correlate to the crime. It kind of makes you it makes you think about crimes and the correlated punishments. Which is not a crime and punishment pun, but it worked out perfectly. And then the third one that I really, really enjoyed was The Flower of the Other Side, which is a zombie tale. And it is a zombie tale told from the perspective of the zombies, who basically have this sort of like sign language with one another, which I also really enjoyed. And it's a story basically about, the potential for zombies to actually return from their zombiehoods. Is life possible in a dead body? But yeah, I really, even in the ones that I didn't enjoy, what I really enjoyed about this collection is, first of all, its correlation to Chinese traditions and to Chinese history, for example, or customs, but also the concepts behind the stories. I really enjoyed exploring some of these concepts, even if the way in which the story was told or the way in which the story evolved didn't always work for me. I still enjoyed the concepts that were behind these stories and the thoughts that those provoked. So yeah, I had a good time with these 3 books. I'm very happy to have my feedback ratio back above 80%. So whoop whoop, means I can go back to requesting some books on NetGalley. But I did go and check some yesterday, and I actually didn't, I requested one, I believe, but I was really much more hesitant, which I'm very happy about, because that is my intention now, to really go into requesting books on there much more intentional. And so for the time being, as long as I still have some backlog, because I have 2 books that I need to read, 2 or 3, I think 2, maybe 3, that were published already, so that I'm behind on. And then I have 2, but they still need to be published, so I'm fine with those. But as long as I still have a few that have already been published that I'm behind on, I don't want to go all out on NetGalley. I want to be super, super strict on NetGalley. So at this point in time, the only thing that I've requested was a book that was on my high priority, or like it was on my anticipated releases for 2024 list. So if it wasn't on there and it looked interesting, I was like, nope. You didn't have an interest in this before, you didn't know about its existence, to be fair, but let's just wait and just read this one later, also because of these books coming out too shortly compared to this time period now. So yeah, I'm hoping to keep going to NetGalley much more intentional, to much more restrict what I'm allowing myself to request there, and not just being like, oh, this sounds interesting, yeah, sure, let's see if they give it to me. Because yeah, a lot of times what I've had on NetGalley is that they give it to you like the day before or so, and then you, unless this is like a book that you're really, really excited about getting to, that then just means that I immediately get demotivated because I know I won't be able to finish it in time for the release of the book, and then I kind of feel it's useless, and then I just put it off. So I want to make sure that the books that I am requesting are books that when that email comes in of like, you've been accepted for this proof, I'm gonna be wanting to open that book immediately and start reading. So here's hoping that that's how we're going to continue with that. But yeah, this was my experiment, reading 24 hours and seeing how much arcs I can get done within that period of time. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys for the next video. Bye!